inspect the guard of honor. Mounted by the Ghana Navy in his honor. And mind you, the Speaker of Parliament, Martin, had told the President not to be late on this occasion. You know, usually it's advertised that the President would arrive at 10 a.m., but sometimes they arrive later. And he's taking the general salute. Now he's going to get invited to inspect the Guard of Honor.
Yeah, but then I think commendations to the President's team. He arrived a few minutes after 10.
State of the Nation's Address, Guard of Honor, formula. 4 officers, 96 rank and file, with the Ghana Navy Regimental Band on bridge. Ready for evacuation. Naval Lieutenant Nana Kwesi Owusu, PAC, reporting, Mr. President. Mr. President.
Martin, this is really sharp. A lieutenant speaking to the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. He better had gotten it right, because he had no option.
The levels of rank very high. Yeah.
And at this point, you know that the IGP and the Chief of Defense Staff are the ceremonial aide-de-camps of the President of the Republic. Okay. So that's how it's done. They are the ceremonial aide-de-camp. The President does not hold any public ceremony like this without them. They have to be there too. So he's inspecting the Guard of Honor now. And interesting that he's spot on. One other president who's been, I think that in the first year of the president's rule in 2017 all through, he used to be very punctual.
Yes.
I don't know what changed along the line.
Yes, and then again, it goes back to my earlier submission, which is that I think the advice by the Speaker that they should get in at 10, or the President should get in at 10, or not later than that, has been heeded too. So he got there. In fact, he got there moments before 10. And we also saw the Speaker and the leadership of Parliament getting in around 9:45 thereabout. So the President is on time, which gives the impression that if everything we are going to be talking about is anything to go by, we are likely to have quite a straightforward presentation, and then the reactions thereof would also come. And the leadership of Parliament, we saw them walking out because they would have to meet the President at the foyer and then usher him into the chamber of the House. So, well, these are live pictures on your screens. The President is inspecting the Guard of Honor mounted by the Ghana Navy. The Ghana Navy,
right, with their naval regimental band. But it's instructive to also mention that the President will have to be ushered in, because technically the President, the Chief Justice, and everybody else are visitors to Parliament. Right. So once they get there, they have to be properly welcomed. But the inspection has been done. The Guard of Honor parade has been done. The Lieutenant would have to go and report to him and ask for his blessing to dismiss the... And there he comes.
Inspection over. May I have your permission to carry on, Mr. President? Hi, Mr. President.
And you know, Martin, for some good reason, the naval officers do not bank like you would find the Air Force and the Army do, because it is feared that once they do that, they may be sinking the ship, and sometimes they would have their parades on, you know, the ship, so they do not have to bank. But that ceremony has been done. The president now will go into the chamber, and he will be welcomed. We'll go into the foyer first of all. Will be welcomed by the Speaker of Parliament. Culture there, the president now walks on the red carpet. When I see this red carpet, I'm reminded of former President Rawlings and his encounter with former Mayor of Accra, Alfred Okuvandapoor. You remember that incident? Yes, and the sacking that ever is remembered. So now he's going to be welcomed by the Speaker of Parliament, by the majority leader, minority leader, the deputies and the whips. They would have to welcome him into the chambers, the leadership of the House, because it's important that they do. He is regarded, even though he's the father of the land, he's regarded as a visitor to the August House of Parliament.
And you know, it then raises the question, if the number one man in the country even needs protocol to get into Parliament, then we do not have any reason to justify why the military, during the,
to intrude Parliament.
That intrusion should be condemned. Well, it has been condemned, but then it never ever should happen again. In our history.
And hearty conversations happening there. Vice President Bobby also in your shot. Harun Adriso is minority leader. Osechi Mensah is a majority leader there with him. Their ADCs are following them. Of course, their whips are also with them. And is that beautiful Rebecca? No, that's not her.
She was outside with
as the president likes to call his wife, beautiful Rebecca. Parliament really is packed today, and expectations are high. Issues about the economy, I'm sure, will take center stage, because people would want to know how our CD will be resuscitated with the injection of $2 billion.
Yes.
And also how we intend to bounce back, how we need to do local production to enhance the capacity of our our economy. But the president will first have to sign the visitors book. But he could, there are two options. He could either do it before
or after.
It depends on what the arrangement and protocol is.
The smile on the president's face, you can tell those are smiles of nostalgia. When he was, in his days when he was in Parliament, as a member for the
Ebuakwa area. Right.
So I'm sure he's getting that kind of feeling of, these grounds, these hallowed grounds, I have walked here, a few years before. But then now he's coming in a different capacity.
And he has said that before. He said that in 2020 in the State of the Nation address. He said that he mentioned some of the debates that he had in the House. He mentioned H.E. John Dramani Mahama and reminisced on the times that they had enjoyed together. But Martin, you also see that the mace is there, which means that the House has been called to order, and all the members of Parliament are standing upright to welcome the leadership of the House, because once the mace is placed there, There's no way you can cross to the other side of the aisle without bowing to Mr. Speaker. It is instructive. And the mace is a symbol of authority of Parliament, a special arm of the Republic.
And it then also brings to mind the day the first confusion happened in Parliament, when the chaos broke out. One of the things they quickly had to protect was the mace, because then if it is stolen or it is broken or someone
the authority of Parliament is
absolutely, the authority had been tampered with. So it is one of the things they quickly had to protect. Then they went on to see if they could secure the Speaker's seat. And
you see, Martin, there are a lot of people on the floor of Parliament, in the chamber, which is ordinarily not what happens, because if you're not a sworn member of Parliament or an elected member of Parliament, one of the 275, you can't be on the floor of Parliament. But special dispensation is made for days like this, where the Chief Justice and other individuals are in the House. Well, national anthem there.
For us,
And that's the police regimental band, sharply dressed there. This uniform looks cool. This look cool and completely new. So the president is seated. The Speaker of Parliament will now take his place, and I would have to invite him to deliver the message of the State of the Nation. I'm sure he will go first to the leadership of the House to get indication from them. Right Honourable Speaker Alban Bagbin. Interestingly, today he's wearing a suit and a tie. I thought that the Speaker had indicated that he was going to do local traditional stuff.
Yes. And probably we could also talk about the sitting arrangement of the gentleman and lady up there. You know, so the president, who's
is central,
and then on his right you have the Chief Justice on his right, then the Speaker on his left, and then the Vice President.
Yeah.
That is why Speaker Bagbin said that he is actually number 3.
Number 3 in line.
In line, not number 4 as people wanted.
That's right.
He comes before the Vice President.
We should have taken correction of the votes and proceedings and official report. We identified a number of issues, but because of the pressure of time, we are unable to do it today. But we will do it the next sitting, and we'll definitely make sure that we correct the errors that we've identified. For today, I will, on your behalf, say that I'm extremely privileged to have the presence of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, and Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces in this chamber. His Excellency, the President, is here in accordance with Article 67 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana to deliver a message on the state of the nation to this honorable House. On behalf of leadership and honorable members of this August House, it is my privilege and singular honor to welcome His Excellency the President of the Republic to the House. Honorable members, before I invite His Excellency the President to deliver the message on the state of the nation, permit me to recognize the presence in this August chamber of the following distinguished personalities. We have Uves, and it's also a privilege for him to be here, the Vice President, in the person of His Excellency Alhaji Mahamudu Bawumia. We have His Lordship the Chief Justice, the Law Lords, the Chief in charge of all the Law Lords in this country. My Lord Chief Justice Kwasi Enim Yeboah. We also have the presence of our First Lady, our First Lady, Her Excellency Mrs. Rebecca Akufo-Addo. And we have the spouse of His Excellency the Vice President, you know, the person of His Excellency Mrs. Samira Bawumia. We are privileged to have the chairman of the whole Council of State present here. And you know, the chairman is the person of Nana Otu Sribo II. Let me, before I proceed, announce that we are also privileged to have the presence of my wife. The spouse, we are also privileged to have the presence of the former First Lady, a very yes, she has been a very bold lady, and in fact, I can confirm that she's been one of the catalysts that has really brought the issue of women empowerment, not only in Ghana, but globally. We have the presence of Her Excellency Nana Konadu Ajiman Rawlings. And we have the presence of the chairman of the party in government, the New Patriotic Party, in the presence here. He was, as you know, a former first deputy speaker and also a former second deputy speaker, and that used to be called the Elembele Mugabe. He is in the person of Honorable Freddie Blay. And we have the General Secretary of the party in power, the New Patriotic Party, in the person, quite a young man, John Boedu. have honorable members, my attention has just been drawn that we have with us the whole chief of staff. She used to be in charge of my wife's in parliament here, and now she's the chief of staff of the whole country. But I still refer to her as my senior wife. She's in the person of Honorable Akusia Frema Opare. And we have the General Secretary of the alternative government in the person the National Democratic Congress, the General of all generals. He was a member of this house for 3 good terms and a deputy minister of state. It's in the person of Honorable Johnson Asiedu Inketia. With all this galaxy of important men and women, statesmen, definitely my expectation is that the dignity of this house, the majesty and aura of this house will be enhanced. It's with this, I now have the greatest pleasure in inviting His Excellency the President to deliver his message. Your Excellency, you may now deliver your message.
Speaker, it is always an honor and a pleasure to be back here where I was a 3-time member to give a message on the state of the nation as required by the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I hope you forgive me if I begin by asking members of the House to join me to salute the management, technical and playing teams of the Black Stars. Who against the odds beat the Super Eagles of Nigeria in Abuja yesterday. Their qualification for the World Cup has brought so much joy to Ghanaians, and we're looking forward to an outstanding performance in Qatar. 3 cheers for the Black Stars. In accordance with protocol and convention, it is good to see that First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo, Vice President Muhammadu Bawumia, Second Lady Samira Bawumia, spouse of Mr. Speaker, Madam Alice Ajua Jonas, Chief Justice Anini Abua, and Justices of the Supreme Court, the Chairperson Nana Utosribo II, and members of the Council of State, Chief of Defense Staff, Vice Admiral Seth Amwama, Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Okufu Dampare, and service chiefs are all present. Mr. Speaker, the House is also duly honored by the welcome attendance virtually of the former President of the Republic, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, former First Lady, Her Excellency Nana Konadu Agyeman Rawlings, and the Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Mr. Speaker, from my vantage point as President of the Republic, from the focus point as head of government, from the enviable position of a husband, a father, and a grandfather, I know that there's a general sense of anxiety in our nation at the moment. The Ghanaian people are anxious about the economy, the cost of living, income levels, jobs for young people, and even about issues on which we all thought we had achieved a national consensus. When some amongst us are raising questions about the certainties on which we are building the state, it is not surprising that worries about the stability of the government would become cause for heightened tension in the nation. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago to the day, we were in the midst of a lockdown in the main metropolitan centers of our country. We were truly in the midst of the unknown. It took a while before it even got a name, but a pandemic it was. And the only certainty about it was that nobody knew very much about it. The scientists, the health experts, and the World Health Organization were all united in their view that the virus would cause a lot of devastation. The world before COVID now seems such a long time ago, and the trauma of a world ruled by a pandemic has changed all our perspectives. Back in March 2020, when the first cases of COVID hit our country, we and the rest of the world were in uncharted territory. Fear and sheer terror gripped our land. Probably to future generations, it will look quite obvious what should have been done. But 2 years ago, it felt like we had fallen into a dark, malicious, and terrifying abyss. We could not have been prepared for the catastrophe that hit us. Even the richest economies with the most sophisticated structures were unprepared. Maybe some of us have forgotten what the experts were predicting at the time. Our health and medical infrastructure was woefully inadequate, and we would not be able to cope. There were going to be piles of dead bodies strewn across the streets of Africa. There was a general consensus that we should spend all our energies on resources, on protecting lives. I remember, for example, the discussions about PPEs 2 years ago. Nobody was asking or was interested in how much they cost. Just find them for our health workers, and that was the only consideration. I wonder how many people remember the cost of the first face shields and nose masks that came into our country. I took the decision we would prioritize the savings of lives, and then we would get together to rebuild our economy. Nobody imagined the devastation would be so widespread and last so long. We've had our fair share of COVID deniers and conspiracy theorists, but it is fair to say, Mr. Speaker, that our management of the COVID-19 outbreak has been exemplary and has been so acclaimed by the world. And with the great mercies of the Almighty, we have saved lives. Indeed, the total number of deaths we have sadly recorded, 1,445, represents a minuscule fraction of the total number of deaths on the African continent, 0.6%. I remember a year ago, we were in the midst of the second wave of COVID infections and deaths. There was widespread fear. Again, there was consensus. We should concentrate all attention and resources on protecting lives. By that time, a little more was known about the virus, and the anxiety had shifted to the provision of vaccines. We moved rapidly to secure the provisions of vaccines, first for the frontline officials and workers and those most at risk, and then to the general mass of the population, always relying on the current scientific thinking. We had to learn some very hard lessons, and our belief in the need for self-sufficiency was reinforced when vaccine nationalism was played out blatantly by the rich and powerful countries. Mr. Speaker, the Presidential Vaccine Manufacturing Committee, which I set up to respond to this obvious deficiency, has put in place a comprehensive strategy for domestic vaccine production and the establishment of a National Vaccine Institute to implement the strategy, which will enable us to begin the first phase of commercial production in January 2024. A bill will shortly be brought to you in this House for your support and approval for the establishment of the National Vaccine Institute. This pandemic exposed other shortcomings of our country, which have undoubtedly contributed to the anxieties that have befallen the nation. Agenda 111 was born out of this necessity to address some of these shortcomings. At the normal rate of growth, we're not likely to make up the deficit in our health facilities infrastructure for a very long time. Hence the need for a special dedicated program of infrastructural development. We are undertaking the construction of 101 entities, which comprise standard 100-bed district hospitals for 101 districts without hospitals, with accommodation for doctors and nurses. 6 new regional hospitals for each of the 6 new regions. The rehabilitation of the Efia Nkwanta Hospital in the Western region. 1 new regional hospital for the Western region. And 3 psychiatric hospitals for each of the 3 zones of the country, that is North, Middle, and Coastal. It is an ambitious project which must and will be done, and which will create some 33,900 jobs for construction workers, and on completion, some 34,300 jobs for health workers. Mr. Speaker, I have to report, like all major construction projects, it is evident that the initial schedule we gave for the completion of Agenda 111 was overly ambitious. Identifying suitable sites around the country, for example, turned out to be even more problematic than had been anticipated. I am now able to say that a great deal of the preparatory work has now been completed, and work has started at 87 of the 111 sites. I've been assured that preliminary work on the remaining 24 sites is ongoing. We have every intention of seeing this project through to its successful end, which will enable me to commission all 111 hospitals before I leave office on 7th January 2025. Mr. Speaker, we have saved lives and fared much better than we had feared and the experts predicted. But the consequences of lockdowns, border and business closures, and unplanned expenditures have combined to have a devastating impact on our economy. The unplanned expenditures included, but were not limited to, the recruitment on a permanent basis of 58,121 healthcare professionals and the payment of extra incentives to our frontline health workers. It took an unbudgeted 1.9 billion cedis to ensure that our children and teaching staff went back and stayed in school safely. Some, including regrettably a few in this honorable House, went as far as to accuse the government of trying to kill Ghanaian children when we introduced the controlled school reopenings. I might add here that in some countries, school closures have lasted for 20 months, and children are only now going back to school. Our children did not lose a single academic year. We provided nearly 5 million households and over 10 million people with electricity and water subsidies at the time they were most needed. In all, data from the Ministry of Finance tells us that an amount of 17.7 billion cedis, 4.6% of GDP, has been spent in containing the pandemic since 2020. Mr. Speaker, the NPP government came into office with a plan to build a resilient economy and set us on the path to prosperity. We were on course, and our performance between 2017 and the beginning of 2020 demonstrates we're making rapid progress. Indeed, in 2017, 2018, and 2019, we recorded average annual GDP growth rates of 7%, making us one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We grew the economy from the cedi equivalent of 54 billion United States dollars at the end of 2016 to the cedi equivalent of 72 billion United States dollars in 2020, a 33% increase. Then COVID arrived. This is not something that anyone could have planned for, and the consequences are there for us all to see around the world. The big and established economies of the world have been knocked off their planned trajectory. Countries where budget deficits were unknown and prohibited by law suddenly had to accept huge deficits to underwrite social cohesion. The economic devastation of COVID has since the beginning of this year been further aggravated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has worsened the economic outlook of the entire world. We in Ghana have not escaped this development, and the consequences are being felt in rising living costs at our markets and at fuel stations. The terrible events in Ukraine have a direct impact on our lives here in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, 30% of our wheat flour and fertilizer imports come from Russia. 60% of iron rods and other metal sheets are imported from the Ukraine. And almost 20% of Ghana's manganese is shipped to the Ukraine. The bombs might be dropping on cities half a world away, but they are hitting our pockets here in Ghana. Even so, we have managed to ensure that full supplies have not been disrupted, unlike in several other parts of the world. Last week, the Minister for Finance spelled out in detail to the country the economic and fiscal difficulties we face, and the raft of measures we're introducing to bring relief and restore us to economic growth. The measures that have been announced by the Minister for Finance are meant to demonstrate that we are aware that we are in difficult times and we are addressing the situation. The belt-tightening measures being set for members of the executive have been elaborated within this context. And I'm hoping that you're going to join us in this undertaking. This government remains alive to its responsibilities to the Ghanaian people. The difficulties of the time notwithstanding, we intend to continue to grow this economy and bring prosperity. That will only happen when we continue to invest in the future. Our children will continue to be educated and be equipped to run a modern and digitalized economy. The free SHS and free TVET are the best vehicles we have devised to take us to the realization of our goal of an educated and skilled workforce. The computerized school placement system is currently ongoing, and the latest batch of JHS students will soon embark on their free SHS and free TVET education. The TVET institutions are being upgraded and equipped to enable them train the increased numbers of children that we want to be attracted to that sector to meet the modern needs of our economy. This year, I'll be commissioning some of the 34 refurbished National Vocational and Technical Institutes, NVTIs, across the country. The refurbishment comprises the construction, rehabilitation, and equipment of laboratories, workshops, additional classrooms, hostels, and administrative offices. Within the next few months, the construction of 5 technical colleges will begin in various parts of the country. 3 technical institutes will be upgraded to tertiary status. The initial phase for the construction of 9 TVET campuses will commence next month in Bosomtwe, Achimewisa, Boakon, Kenyase, Patuda, Dambai, Larabanga, Guabuliga, and Tolibri. These campuses will have academic facilities, workshops, laboratories, hostels, and staff accommodation, and provide access for training. Government is in the process of securing financing for the construction of 5 STEM universities in 5 new regions. That is Western North, Savannah, Northeast, Ahafo, and Otibitas. Steps are being taken to turn the planned Bunso campus of the University of Environment and Sustainable Development into a standalone independent university focused on the study of engineering. Construction of this campus is set to begin within the next 3 months. Mr. Speaker, there is great potential for our people in the creative arts, fashion, and film industry. We want to unleash the creativity, enterprise, and innovation of our youth by giving them education and skills training in the creative arts. The Creative Arts Senior High School in Kwadaso in Kumasi, whose construction is currently 70% complete, will serve as a beacon for many young and talented people seeking a fulfilling career in this field. Mr. Speaker, I recall with nostalgia the end of year 2019, just before the onset of COVID, when the world came to Ghana in that December to remember. And we were the happy place to be at the end of our year of return. Ghana continues to lead the push for African renaissance through the decade-long Beyond the Return project.